I was kind of joking around on the Discord when I started book 1 of this series. I just, as a joke, put up Sailing by Christopher Cross, the YouTube video of that song, and just said, yeah, hey, cool, it's funny, it's for boats. And then for this one, I put up Ship of Fools by Robert Plant. And I started thinking about the titles of some of the later books in the series. Like, Ship of Fools actually sounds like it could be a book within this series. But anyway... Hey, what's up, bookworms and hobnobbers? We are back once again to talk a little more Realm of the Elderlings and the Liveship Traders with book number 2 in that series. This is The Mad Ship. Now, released in 1998, book number 2 of the Liveship Traders trilogy, book number 5 of the Realm of the Elderlings. So guys, if you missed my review for Ship of Magic, it's a book that I loved, but I talked about it right here. And the reason I want to point this out to you is because the reviews for Realm of the Elderlings going forward are going to be not spoilers, but they're going to have some light spoilers, as I call it. Now, what this means is I'm just going to kind of talk about the characters, talk about some of the changes that happen to them in each book. I'm not going to spoil the major plot for you. We've got full spoiler talk discussions coming for those later, but I just want to let you guys know, if you want to know absolutely nothing about this book, I'd maybe bookmark this, come back after you read it, and yes, you should read it. But that is all I can tell you about a light spoiler warning. But let's go ahead and talk about, guys, what is this book about? Now, the Vestrit family live ship Vivacia has been taken by the pirate king Kenneth. Held captive on board, Wintrow Vestrit finds himself competing with Kenneth for Vivacia's love as the ship slowly acquires her own bloodlust. Leagues away, Althea Vestrit has found a new home aboard the live ship Ophelia. But she lives only to reclaim the Vivacia, and with her friend Brashen, as she plans a dangerous rescue. Meanwhile, in Bingtown, the fading fortunes of the Vestrit family lead Malta deeper into the magical secrets of the Rainwild Traders. And just outside of Bingtown, Amber dreams of relaunching Paragon, the Mad Live Ship. Guys, this takes us to 1998. This is The Mad Ship. Now, with this, guys, we're going to be like usual. We're going to talk about what makes it good or bad. Now, look, I don't want to repeat myself when I'm going to be doing this by every single book. I don't want to repeat the exact same things I said last video. But you can't talk about a Robin Hobb book and talk about the good without talking about the characters, right? Look, the characters continue to be amazing. It continues to be what is going to sell this series to everybody, is the character work that she does. She is a master at it, and that continues here. And it continues to grow here. And one of the things that I love about this is, I said in the last one, that it really takes the ideas of, how you are in front of your family, how your family can see you at your ugliest. And, that's just because you feel more comfortable around family, or you see family a lot more. You will let all of your bad stuff hang out when you are around family. And I think with that, it just continues to kind of build upon that. But then it gives you some other families. First we focus on just the Vestrit family. This one, you're focusing a little more on the Cooper's family, which I thought was something really unexpected, and I love it. But look, I love how she's continued to make these characters' relationships with one another grow. There's a particular chapter in here, I think it was chapter 8, I might be wrong, but there was a chapter where Wintrow and Etta are just talking to each other, and they're learning to put their barriers down and seeing that they can coexist, and that they are actually on the same page with one another. And when I read that, I said, this might be one of the greatest character building chapters that I have ever read. And that's not hyperbole. It was that good. Just what they would say is, these are real things. These are things that real people would say to each other. It never once felt like, this is just a silly fantasy book with talking boats, right? It continues to just be the heart of the source material here. Is just, oh my God, the way that these characters talk to each other. It's so realistic and it's believable. They don't just say, okay, well, I'm the author of the series and these characters need to get along now. It makes it feel like it is something that they slowly come to of their own volition, and it's earned, and it's just powerful. And that continues with each and every character that interacts with this series, and that's what continues to make it special. But I'm going to do like I did last review, guys. I'm going to talk about each character and kind of their journey in this book of the main characters. Now, Wintrow here, like I already mentioned, his relationship with Etta, but his relationship with Kenneth also, it really is the heart of this book, is these three. There's other things going on, obviously, And they might not even get the most page time, but I really feel like the relationship between these three characters is what makes this book go around. And I know in a book called The Mad Ship, you're going to think it's about Althea and Brashen and Amber and the Paragon, right? And that is probably a central focus of the story. But for me, the heart of the book feels like these three characters and them learning to accept one another, learning to understand that they are very different and that they somewhat, even begrudgingly, they need each other. Kenneth wants Etta and Wintrow to get along. She's kind of iffy about that. Wintrow's like, no, I don't want to really, feel like I've got to compete with Kenneth for the Vivacia. And then over time, he feels like he's got to kind of protect Kenneth. Now, look, I'm not saying he looks at Kenneth as a father figure in this, but when it's nut cutting time and there's throwing some chips down, he's ready to fight to protect Kenneth. And to me, that's like, it's almost like with a family member you don't particularly like, but you know what? You can cut them, but no one else can touch them. No one else better step up. And that's kind of the way that I feel like he treats with Kenneth. And then, of course, with the relationship that he's kind of trying to, motivate some things between Etta and Wintrow. Won't get into exactly the details. And it's what he thinks is going on is one thing, and what actually happens is another. Like, she teaches him how to fight, how to stand up for himself, and it's really, really cool. It's really good. It helps to continue build that relationship between the two of them, and it really just goes into their relationship with Kenneth. It's beautifully done. The way she's crafting those three characters together is just phenomenal. I can't really say very much else other than it's just so much fun. It's such a joy whenever I turn the page and see the next chapter is a Kenneth, Wintrow, and Etta chapter on Vivacia. I'm super excited. It's just so damn good. And like I said, I love that there's a part where they're all really in some serious trouble, and Wintrow, the one who just wants to go back to his monastery, he's the one who gets them out of trouble. It's really, really special. And there is a part where they have on Others Island where I'm not going to lie to you guys, I have no idea what was going on. No idea at all. You know what? That's fine, because I feel like I made the joke last review about how the serpents are kind of like this Malazan thing I don't going on, but it's never like in a Malazan way where I feel like, and I'll probably never get answers. I feel like she's going to give me answers with this, so I'm not letting it frustrate me. I'm just thinking it's one of those things that I can see that people doing this on a reread are probably going to get a lot more, especially what happens in Others Island here at the end of this book, and they'll be able to understand what's going on a lot more clear than someone reading it for the first time. But just know that it is, I'm asking questions for the right reasons, I think. I really am, a little bit of that, where I'm like, okay, I want to know. I'm not frustrated that she's not giving me the answers. I think she gives you answers just enough that you want to keep going, and you're not overly frustrated with it. And it's a mystery. You're really hooked. You want to see what happens. How about Althea? I like with her in this one, where I said book one, I love that she just really rolled up her sleeves, got her hands dirty, and she worked hard. With this one, another thing that I love in fantasy and all literature is that you can go home again. You can go home. You can think about, you can have this huge falling out with family. And here's the thing with me as a parent, realizing I could be mad as hell at my kids, and the minute that they come to me and want to fix things, I will drop it, no questions asked, because they're my kids. I love them. And I think that's what you get with Althea and Ronica here, and Kefria. It's really, really beautiful, the reconciliation that they have. It isn't always easy, but is it ever with family? I think that's what's really, really great about it. So them coming back together is actually really, really good stuff. I think Althea does take a little bit more of a political role in this book, and it really just leads to her and Brashen and Amber really going on this quest to, really make amends, I guess, with Paragon, get him, work some things out, actually acquire him from the family that currently has him, and get him seaworthy again to go back on the water and try to see if they can get back the Vivacia, which has been taken from them. So it's a really interesting journey, but I love with Althea, like I said, is just her trying to reconcile with family. And no, it's never easy. And yes, no matter how stubborn you are, you got to give a little to get a little. And I think that she is able to do that. So I know there's a lot of people that get frustrated with Althea. I think in the first book, she felt like she was very bratty. She was entitled. She only wanted things her way. And I said she did come around on me because she worked hard to get what she got. In this one, I think that she's still very much independent, headstrong. She is in control, but she knows when she needs to give a little. She knows when she needs to not just be a jerk. And I really respect that of this character, is that she's able to make things work with family. And that's what you got to do with family. You got to just give a little sometimes. And she's very, very good at that. So, again, I think you can be mad as hell at your kids, like I said, and you can learn to let things go just like that. So how about Brashen? I think that with him he's the first to learn about what happened with Vivacia in the last book, and so he's got to kind of visit the family, let them know what's going on. And I'll say that his confrontation with Malta, all of the ick factor that I could handle in one of these books. It was a absolutely miserable chapter to read, but uncomfortable, almost like in a Joe Abercrombie kind of way. That was really the only time I think I'm going to compare Robin Hobb to Joe Abercrombie. That's the kind of ick feeling that I got reading that chapter. But he and Amber and Althea, I think they make a good team when it comes to all the work that's going to go into trying to get Paragon seaworthy again. I think it's never going to be easy with something that's as far gone as Paragon seems to be. And it's convincing. It's convincing the way that they're able to actually finally get things going. And building the relationship between those four characters there is, like I said, probably is the main storyline in this book, whereas I said the other characters were the heart of it. This is great stuff, too. Look, here's the thing with this series. Anything to do with Vivacia, anything to do with Paragon, and even the Ophelia, really, really good stuff. And I know that a lot of people were concerned about that with me because, they say I don't like nautical books. Like I said, this feels very much like a family drama and like a Treasure Island and less like a Moby Dick, So I'm loving all the stuff on the water. It's all really good. I talked about Malta there for a second. I gotta say, it's actually pretty impressive that she makes Malta a much bigger character in this book, because I think in the last book she was just almost there as like a pawn, a chess piece for the family to use to kind of fix some things, get them out of trouble, and she was just a brat. And she does a lot of that in this book too. She does a lot of things, like I was just mentioning that chapter with Brashen and her was absolutely awful. But I think that there is a turning point for her character in this book, and turning point is she's actually talking to Delotrell, which is Brashen's sister, who she's friends with. And she's basically trying to use her feminine wiles to get her brother to do something for her that would help her family out. And it would cause a big rift in her family. And Delo basically stops her in one of these great, great character moments and is like, look, please don't push. Because look, in your family, when you guys fight, you reconcile and you're stronger for it. In my family, when we fight, someone's banished and never allowed to come back. I'm talking about Brashen. And that hit me right in the feels. And I think that really is a turning point for Malta as a character. Say, maybe I should not always just thinking about myself. Maybe I should show a little empathy for other people. And she does for her friend there. She does say, okay, how about I go to the Cooper's family, see if they can help me out. And I think that's a great, great character moment and believable growth for a character like that, to have that moment of clarity and say, maybe I'm going about this the wrong way. Maybe I need to stop, trashing other people's lives just to benefit solely me. And it really is a very clear turning point for me. But I think her relationship with Rain and it's interesting, because I wasn't sure how I felt about it at first. Their first meeting, I was kind of got like this weird vibe about it. But I think getting to know more about the Cooper's family, which I'll talk about in a minute, really, really did help. But her dealing with multiple suitors, I think, in this one is a big thing of, do you pick for love or do you pick to help your family, that kind of thing. And she has lots of interesting things with the bigger part of the series, which I really wouldn't want to spoil for you. And we'll talk about that in depth when we get into our spoiler discussions. But there are some things in dealing with the greater mythology of the series as a whole that she becomes directly involved in, and it's really, really good. But I'd say incredible growth for that character, and her, Miss Hobb, that is, being able to make this a bigger character and making a character that I absolutely just wanted to punch in the first book, and I wanted to punch some in this book, but realized, hey, everyone's got a character arc, and we're starting to see it with her, and it's quite good. It's quite good, as is Rain Cooper's. Now, this is a character I wasn't sure I was ever going to be interested in, really. I loved getting more of this family in this one, knowing what they're about, because I think you can read that first book and get an idea about what the Cooper's family is all about. And then after you read some Rain POV chapters, you're like, man, I was way off. I was way off in this one. It's a way more interesting character than I thought. It's a way more interesting family than I first originally thought. And you see that they've got some serious issues of their own. You think they're just like this rich, aristocratic family, but they've got some issues that they're dealing with as well. And it's not anything that you see coming. And that's what I think is really, really great about this series, because every time you think you know it's coming, man, you don't. You do not know it's coming, and that makes it just great. But yeah, getting this point of view really did help me So I learned to really enjoy a lot about this character that I really didn't think that I would after Ship of Magic. So again, her continuing to build this world, build this cast by showing us more of this, getting to show us more of the Rain Wilds and stuff really did help. And I didn't expect to learn what we learned about things with Kenneth in this book. And I'll say that, I said in the last book that Kenneth was a real star of the story. Like I've said, that I do feel like him and Etta and Wintrow are the heart of this book. But with Kenneth's stuff, it's even deeper than that, because we get to know some things about his past that obviously I'm going to be all into. I did not expect to learn what we learned about his parents. And his, I guess, there's a certain island. There's some things there as well. And then knowing about him, they kind of briefly mentioned Igrot in the first book, and I just thought it was just like a name in passing. And you get to see more about this relationship that he had with Igrot, and it's very, very good stuff. And his relationship, I think, with Saadar, it has a very, very interesting resolution in this one. And by interesting, I mean amazing. It is an amazing chapter. The resolution between those two, basically everything on that island that I'm mentioning. And I'm not talking about other island, I'm talking about a different island, but it was an amazing chapter. His confrontation with Kyle is really good. So I'm not talking about Kyle very much in this one, because he is pretty much a cameo in this book. Kyle is not in this book a lot, but the scene that he does have with Kenneth is really good. And it's got me wondering what's to come, because I don't think that chapter is fully closed yet. But yeah, all that stuff in the final 50 pages with Kenneth, that there's something more going on with this guy that I think that anyone's really going to figure out. And like I said, it's given me huge question marks in all the right ways, because she's given me just enough backstory about this character that I just want to know more, without just completely shooting her shot and being like, okay, well, I don't need to know anything else in book number 3. I still got several questions. I got some theories. I got all kinds of things going on with Kenneth, but there are plenty of things where I'm like, I don't have a clue, and I'm just along for the ride. I'm going to let her surprise me with what's going to come. So I love the fact that she's able to hop between all of these POVs in a perfectly paced way. A lot of books like this is an author will seem to fall in love with one particular character and do like 3-to-1 with that character to everyone else's chapters. My guy George has done it. Stephen King has done it. A lot of fantasy authors that I love have done it, where they're like, okay, well, I'm going to front load this book with all this stuff and then give you what you want. I never felt like that with this. I felt like with this, every single time I started to think, this chapter's kind of long, she would immediately go to the next character that I want to know about. So I was never ever left going, oh, God, I wonder what this character's doing, or not another chapter by this one, because she spread the ball around so well, everybody got to take their shots. That's just a good coach, and that's what she's doing here. She's really being a great delegator with the way that she does pace out her chapters. So again, perfectly paced, 2 for 2. So I love that we're not ever wondering, when are we going to get back to this character, and she's never wearing out anyone's welcome, with by making sure that we stick to this character for way, way more time than we want to. But the second and third act in this have some huge revelations that completely change the series, and in a good way, a really, really good way. Because there's a couple times where I'm like, I'm really enjoying this, but I was like, not really sure if I understand what the plot is here. And then when it happens, like, oh, that's where we're going. And guys, the last 50 pages is just phenomenal. There's so many revelations that are going to surprise you. There's some shocking deaths that'll have you be like, wow, I didn't see that one coming. And it's all those things that you expect in a Robin Hobb book and more. And it's really, really been great. But it's not perfect, right? Never is perfect. Let's talk about maybe the bad, or the not so good, as I like to call it. I wasn't really interested in the Cirilla and the Satrap chapters. I don't know. The Satrap to me seemed almost like a Regal kind of villain, and I didn't feel like this story needed that type of villain, because we've already got Kenneth, who is a super awesome villain that I'm really, really interested in. I didn't need just a sniveling, whiny, over-the-top, just shitty person like a Regal just to say that we had that. Now, there might be more to it, but as of right now, I'm not really interested. That's probably the only time I was kind of like, I could go on to the next character at this point, because I'm not really that interested in it. So Costco was kind of a big miss for me. The Serpent stuff still continues to just confuse the hell out of me. But like I said, I'm just like, it'll make sense if it needs to make sense. And I'm pretty sure she'll make it make sense. I'm not really overly concerned about it. But I would say that's the only thing that if I had something to drag this book down that makes it maybe not as good as Ship of Magic. Because I would say Ship of Magic's a little better than this. But it's like if Ship of Magic was like a 9.5, this is like a 9.25. Literally the only bad thing I had to say about it is that it's some things that make sense. You know, I talked about that stuff on Other's Island. Didn't really make a lot of sense. And I'm sure it will later. So I'm not really overly concerned about it. So I'll say that's the only thing really holding this one back from being as good as book one. But the real question, guys, is why should you read this book? Now, I think if you like book one, this is more of the same. And that's a good thing. I think what it does is it builds on characters like Malta, like Rain, like Selden, that you get a lot more of them than you got in book one. And it's welcome. You're welcome. You want to learn more about these characters. So they kind of felt like background characters in the first one. They get a little bit more time, but they don't like take over. They get a little bit more time, and by the end of it, I'm just as interested in Malta's story as I am Althea, you know, and I didn't think that was possible in book one. So that's a great, great job there. So if you want to continue to build this world, like I said, we get a closer look at the Rain Wilds for the first time, and that's some exciting stuff. You get to see what things are going on there. You get to see some confrontations with Chalcidian, I think. I don't know how to say that word. So you continue to grow this world slowly. She's taking you around the map where I feel like, okay, now I feel like I can, in my head, I know where everything is now. And I think that because she explains stuff so well. You never start a chapter and be like, I don't know who this is or where they are. You never feel like that. You always know where you are. You always pretty sure you know where they're headed. You don't really know where the story's going sometimes, but she'll get you there. But continue to build the world that way is doing it the right way, I think. I love that she continues to build on this mythology about dragons and serpents and other legendary beasts and figures. She continues to make that mythology and that lore really, really good to where you just want to know answers. And it makes me wish that this was like Farseer, where Farseer did have like a little bit of like those history epigraphs before each chapter. Kind of started making me wish that we had some of that. So to me, I'm starting to ask a lot more questions about the lore of this world, and I think that's just showing that she's doing a great job of building this world slowly. Again, where she gives you enough that you've got questions, but you never feel like you're getting no answers, and you're just completely confused. And I think that she's brilliant at it, guys. She's brilliant at all of these things, and I love that if you want to know more about Kenneth's backstory, you're going to get it here. So if you liked Kenneth a lot in book one, you're going to continue to like it here in book two because it's really, really good stuff. So final thoughts, guys. Like I kind of said, if Ship of Magic was like a 9.5, this would be like a 9.25. And that's not my official scores. I'm just giving you an example of how close it was. It was really that close. Again, the only thing that I have about it is I don't really understand the serpent stuff. She Who Remembers, any of that stuff is just kind of like, wow, I'm not really sure what kind of happened with the end of Wintrow and Kenneth's and Edda's story there on that final couple chapters. But again, I'm very, very invested in knowing what goes on. She's just perfectly pacing the series, guys. She's giving clues. She's giving answers. She's planting little hooks that make me want to know more. Again, I'm asking questions in the best way, not in a light. This makes no sense. Why did they do this? I never once find myself saying, that doesn't make sense. What character thinks this way? Everything feels well thought out and rational and 3 steps ahead of what the reader is going to consider doing. And I love that. She answers those questions in just a way that I am wanting to know more about Edda. I'm wanting to know more about Malta. I want to know more about Rain because she's given them all 3 of those expanded roles in this book, and I want to know more. She started giving me a little bit more about Selden too, so that was something I didn't think was going to, like the first book I was like, who's Selden? I don't even know who he is. So she's doing this just so great. She doesn't stay one note with these characters. That's what I like. I feel like you are in the middle of a very big character arc with all these characters, and she's given me enough to where I think that we're going to get it in the next book, and it's going to be perfect. I don't feel like anyone's story is done yet. Anyone can still take a completely different route. And these books are so long, guys, that they can actually take a little bit to make a big, big change in one book. It can happen. So I feel like I'm about right here, and it's about to come full circle to what that character was always going to be in her head. So this has me anticipating that moment, guys. You know, the moment where you got a cast like this, and you're loving that she bounces around and shows you different locations and everything that's going on with each of these characters. And I feel like the next book is where we're going to get convergence. We're going to get a lot of these characters that I've grown to love, and they're going to meet up. And it's going to have one of those moments like I talked about with the Game of Thrones where you had Tyrion fighting against Robb Stark. And I was like, I don't want either side to lose here. I think you can get that moment. You're going to have some of these characters that I've grown to love. They're actually going to meet up, and you know it's going to end in blood. And you don't know what you want to happen. You just want everyone to be safe. You want them to just throw a party, bust open a keg of rum and party on the decks of those live ships, right? But it's probably not going to happen, right? So I'm excited for the Convergence. I'm excited where the series is going. Excited to keep talking about it. I'm excited to finish it, and that way I can talk with that panel I put together to talk about this series. Full spoilers as a whole, and so they can tell me all the things that I missed, most likely. But I'm loving it, guys. If you can't tell, I really am enjoying the return to this world, and again, I think she's I guess 4 out of 5 for me at this point. And when you consider the length of these books, I think that's very, very good. And yeah, here we go, guys. I get to, again, just like I did with Farseer, where I love the first 2 books. Here we go into the third one. I'm not worried with this one. Everybody just told me that Ship of Destiny is not nearly divisive like Assassin's Quest. I really feel like those books were different enough, whereas this really does feel like one story cut into 3 volumes because the books were massive and they had to do that. So I could be wrong. I could revisit this here in a week or 2 and be like, wow, what was I thinking? But I'm pretty confident that she's going to stick the landing with this one. And guys, that was the Mad Ship. I really did enjoy it. Like I said, I'd still put Ship of Magic ahead of it, but just barely, by a nose. So guys, what did you think about the Mad Ship? Why don't you drop in the comments and let me know, please, no spoilers for Ship of Destiny, because I have yet to do it, but I should be doing that here very, very soon. So drop in the comments, guys, and let me know what you think about the Mad Ship, what you think about any of these thoughts I have here. I would love to hear them. So hit me in the comments, and I will talk to you there.